Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to ClausenWorld. By request, I am coming to you today to show you how I make my very own sauerkraut. So join me in the kitchen and let's get to making some fermented foods. Okay, everybody, what we're going to need is a head of cabbage. Now, I ordered these, got my curbside pickup, and they were small, but that's okay. It's cabbage. So I am going to take them out of the plastic wrap, and as you can see, this is a really tiny head of cabbage. Take them out the plastic wrap. And I probably should have did this before I came on camera, but I wanted to show you guys that I'm actually really making this. Put my scissors away. And I don't use it in a recipe. You guys know I don't use a recipe, but I will be putting all of that information in the detail box below. Now that you've unwrapped your cabbage, you're going to take your outer leaves off. Your outer leaves are normally kind of grubby looking, and so I take as many leaves off as I feel I need to take off, because I don't want these leaves in my final product. Now you want to try to take them off in one piece, but as you can see here, I'm not doing a very good job of that. So if they don't come off in one piece, don't worry about it. Now what you're going to do is you're going to save a couple of these leaves, and you're going to use them later on. So don't throw them away. Put them aside in a container of water, and you'll clean them up later. So this one, there's one more leaf. I'm just not real happy with how he looks, so he got to come off. Now cabbages are very tight heads, so you don't have to do a whole lot with these. Just rinse them off, but you clean your cabbage how you choose to clean your cabbage. Okay, so I'm just going to take this leaf off because I don't like how he was looking. All right. And then I'm just going to rinse it. I've already cleaned my hands like numerous times. And you guys have to excuse me. Of course, I'm doing more than one thing in the kitchen, and I just put my pan in here to soak so I can make some lunch and some dinner. So I'm just rinsing off my head of cabbage. And you know what? I'm not liking how that leaf look either, so he gotta go. I don't like spots on the food. Okay. All right. Now I'm gonna put him aside, and I'm gonna do the same thing with this second head of cabbage. Take off those top leaves. Take as many off as you feel you need to take off. If it looks kind of funky, go ahead and take them off. There we go. All right, so I have taken the leaves off my cabbage, and I put them in a side dish over here that has some water, some salt, and a little bit of white vinegar. So they're just going to sit there for a while till I'm ready for them. All right, now we're going to cut up our cabbage. So let's go over to the cutting board and let's get the cutting, okay? There are many ways you can cut up your cabbage. You can use one of these handy dandy bell tower cutter uppers. You can use a mandolin, or you can use a knife. I'm going to be using my knife today. So I'm going to place these away. Not everybody has all these fancy tools. So we're going to use a knife today to make it quick and simple. So let me put this away and make a little bit of room on this cabbage. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, I have my cabbage. Now what I do is I cut my cabbage in half. Please be mindful when you are using a knife. Hopefully your knife is sharp and you can just slice right through your cabbage and not slice through you. Be mindful, please. So I cut my cabbage in half. You see this right here? You don't need that. So let's take that out. I just slice through it like that and take it out. That's the core. Take it out. Don't need it. Now I'm going to place this off to the side because this is going to go in the compost bin. This is not going to go into the garbage. We don't throw that stuff away. That can either go into the compost or the worm bin. Depends on what I touch when I'm out there. Okay, now that you've cut the core out, you have 2 halves of cabbage, right? Now what I do is I take that and I half those. I'm going to place this cabbage to the side over here like that. And I'm going to cut this in half again. I take that half and I cut it in half. Now the reason why I do this is because I want my cabbage to be a little bit smaller. And I'm not using a mandolin, so I'm using my knife. Now all I do now is just slice up my cabbage. And you make this whatever size you want to make this. I make mine a little chunky, and then I put it off into a bowl off to the side, just like so. Now I'm going to cut up both of these cabbages in the exact same manner. I'm not going to have you guys watch me cut up all this cabbage, because you can figure out how to cut your cabbage your way. But I'm just going to cut this up so that you all can see how roughly I'm cutting up this cabbage. And I'm putting it off to the side in a very large bowl. And I will show you that shortly. Okay, so that's my cabbage. Now I'm going to cut up all this cabbage, and then I will come back for the next step. All right, I'm at the last piece of cabbage. And so again, I just rough chop, just like that. And you can make yours as small or as large pieces as you prefer. This is your sauerkraut. Make it how you like it. Now, just in case you're wondering, the reason why I have a paper towel on my chopping board is because when you're chopping something, the last thing you want is your food sliding across your chopping board while you're trying to use a sharp instrument. I also have a little piece of, what do you call that? That's like a cabinet liner up under the chopping board to keep my chopping board in place. You don't want your chopping board moving around while you're cutting stuff. So to be safe, I make sure that I always have that little piece of cabinet liner up under it, as well as a paper towel on top of it to make sure that it's not moving around as easily on my chopping surface. Okay, so now that we have our cabbage all the way chopped up, now you can break these pieces apart like this if you like. You can take them apart because, you know, cabbages, it's tightly together like that. I don't do that. The next step here is salt. So I have some salt over to the side. Let me grab my salt. And you can use whatever salt you want. I'm using pink Himalayan salt, but you use whatever you like. Now I use a really big bowl. I would normally use my glass bowl, but because I had a significant amount of cabbage, this was larger than my glass bowl, so I used what was available to me. So use what's available to you. Now this is a tablespoon, so I'm going to take 1 tablespoon and a teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to sprinkle that liberally over the top of this cabbage, just like so. Now that is, and again, I'm going to put all of the ingredients in the description box below so that you can follow along in your kitchen. And that's roughly a teaspoon right there. So I'm just going to spread this in here like so, just like that, on the top. All right, now I'm going to put my salt aside, and I'm going to put my spoon aside, and I'm going to wash my hands because you saw me touching my salt, you saw me touching my measuring spoon, so I'm going to wash my hands again. So let's do that. All right, now the reason why I'm washing my hands, not because stuff in my kitchen is dirty, but because I'm about ready to put my hands inside this cabbage. I'm going to rinse this off, or dry this off. Now, what you do at this point, once you've sprinkled your salt on the top of your cabbage, then you just toss that cabbage around to get that salt from the top all the way to the bottom. You want to try to get that salt distributed through this cabbage. And so I'm just roughly tossing it around, just like so, because I want to make sure that that salt gets down into the bottom of this bowl to the best of its ability. And I'm taking it from the bottom and bringing it up. Taking it from the bottom, bringing it up. Just like that. And when you feel like you've tossed it around enough, then I'm going to show you the next step. All right. I'm actually going to twist my bowl this way to make sure that I got this side really good, because this side was the closest to me. All right. Okay, I know y'all are tired of seeing me toss this cabbage around, but this is what you need to do to make sure that you're getting that salt all the way around in this bowl. All right, so now that you have tossed around this lettuce in the bowl, I've got salt all on my hands, so I'm going to rinse my hands off. All right, now what you do, and I don't have my towel with me, so I'm going to use what I have available to me. Let me dry my hands off with this paper towel that I just pulled off. All right, now, and I know this is wasteful, y'all, so disregard my wastefulness. I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm going to lay it over the top of this bowl. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm going to let this sit here just like this for an hour. And the reason why we let it sit for an hour is because cabbage is full of water. And you want that salt to draw that water out of the cabbage to the best of its ability within that hour's time frame. So while we let this sit for an hour, we go do something else in the kitchen, like, you know, clean up, cooking, whatever you do. But be mindful of the time and come back in an hour. So I'll be back in an hour and I'll show you the next step of how I make my sauerkraut. All right, everybody, that hour went by really quickly, didn't it? We are back in the kitchen. I am going to wash my hands before we get started. All right, getting these hands cleaned up. Got to make sure that you have clean hands always when you are working around food. You don't want to contaminate anything. So now let's take a look at this cabbage. Look at that, you guys. Do you remember what this cabbage looked like before we let it sit for an hour? You remember how much bigger it was in the bowl? And now it has sunk down in the bowl. Now this step, I'm going to show you all. If you don't have a kraut pounder, which most people who don't make sauerkraut, they don't have a kraut pounder. But if you have any of these tools in your house, this is that meat, I don't know what you call it, when you're making ground meat and you're mixing it up and you're breaking it up in the pan, you can use one of these. If you have a mashed potato masher, you can use one of these. And if you don't have any of those things, you can use these two right here. You may have both, you may not have any. Hopefully you have them, but you can use these knuckles right here if you don't have anything else. I have a kraut pounder because I make sauerkraut pretty regularly in my house. So this is nothing more than a wooden stick that's flat on both ends. One side is larger than the other. And you use it to break down the fibers of your cabbage. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to smash down the fibers of this cabbage, and I'm going to speed this up so that you guys don't have to sit here and watch me smash this down real time. So let's get to smashing. Okay, so we have smashed our cabbage down. You see how the cabbage has changed in texture? That's what you want. You want your cabbage to be broken down and change in texture. You see those fibers have been broken down? Now you want to taste it to see if it has the right saltiness. So you want to taste a little bit of it. Yeah, that's perfect. Not too salty. Has a nice crunch to it. Oh yeah. I hope that wasn't too loud for you guys. Okay, now here's what you do next. I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to get that cabbage off of my kraut pounder. And I hope I didn't offend anybody, but I'm just trying to show you all what you can and cannot use for making sauerkraut in your kitchen. Not everybody has the same tools. Not everybody has the same financial ability. So now that your sauerkraut has reduced by over half, because it looks like it's reduced by over half to me, now you need to put your caraway seeds in there. I like to put caraway seeds in mine. And of course, the description box below, you will find all of the ingredients, how much to put. And I'm just going to sprinkle them on the, okay, I'm not getting enough sprinkling. I'm going to sprinkle them on the top just like that. Just like so. All right. And now I actually have my secret weapon. Now I fermented some carrots already. And I've been eating fermented carrots for quite a while, because I like to ferment foods in my kitchen. And if you're not familiar with the benefits of fermented food, I will put a link down below so that you guys can read up for yourself why it's important to incorporate fermented foods in your, I don't like to say diet, because diet to me means limitation, and you already begin to fail when you feel like you're limiting yourself right off the bat. So I just had a few of fermented carrots left over. I didn't have many. So I'm going to place these fermented carrots inside of my sauerkraut, because I like to have some carrots in mine. And since this is already fermented, it's going to speed up the process. So I'm just trying to get that out of there like that, as much as I possibly can. And it smells amazing, by the way. A lot of people don't like the way fermented foods smell, but I think it smells good. It doesn't smell like kimchi, but it does smell good. All right. So again, I did not have a lot of carrots. Let's get this out of the way. But I did have a few. And so I've already washed my hands off camera. And I'm just now going to pick up that smashed cabbage and mix the carrot around in there a bit to try to distribute it around in the cabbage along with the caraway seeds. Just like that. All right. Now we're going to get our reservoir. We're going to get our container. Whatever you're going to put your cabbage in to ferment it, you're going to need to get it now. I am going to be using a glass jar. I always ferment in glass. That's just me. But I always ferment in glass. Okay, so I think I have everything mixed up. The caraway seeds, the carrots. So everything looks good. So let me grab my jar, and we're going to get to putting this into the jar. and then I'll show you the next step. So let me get this cabbage off of my hands. Hang on one second. And let's move to the next step. All right, we've come to the point where now we need to jar up our sauerkraut. We've tasted it, we've added our seasoning, we've added any other item like my carrots that you want in your sauerkraut. And so now we're going to place it in our container. I use a half-gallon mason jar. Can you guys see that? Half-gallon mason jar. Now you could use a funnel, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to hold it over my container and fill it in with my hands, just like so. And I'm holding it over the bowl so that I don't lose any of my precious cabbage, which I think I just dropped the piece on the cabinet. That's all right. Things happen. Okay, so you see how it's filling up? I might have to lift you guys up a little bit so you can see a little bit better. Hang on just one second. I'm going to show you how I do this. So you're getting your bowl. You move that back a little bit. Let me move you guys up a little bit. Hang on one second. Because you all, let me rinse my hand. Because I want to make sure you all aren't missing this. Rinse my hand off. And let me move you guys up just a tad. All right. All right. Now, I've been in and out of outside with my tripod, so I'm just going to rinse my hands off, wash them off real good, making sure that, because I try to keep my tripod clean, but you never know. I'm outside with that tripod. All right, so this is my half-gallon mason jar. You see that? Now, you have to take your kraut pounder or a wooden spoon that has a long handle, and you're going to have to smash your, can you guys see that? Let me hang on a second. Hopefully that don't fall. You're going to have to take your sauerkraut and you're going to have to press it, because this sauerkraut is full of brine. And so you're pressing it just like so. And I hope you guys can see that brine coming to the surface. Can you see that water coming to the surface, you guys? See that water right there coming to the surface? That's the brine. You need that. You want that. I have seen people make sauerkraut online. And it always amazes me when people put water in their sauerkraut. As I mentioned, I lived in Europe for many years, and I've never seen that, because this makes brine. All right, so we're going to move it over, and we're going to continue to fill it. So let me get my cabbage, and we're going to fill this jar. And this is why I use a half-a-gallon jar or a whole gallon, depending on how much cabbage I'm making. And so since those heads were small, I figured a half-a-gallon would be sufficient. And I'm hoping it will be, because I still have a good amount of cabbage in the bottom of this bowl, and we still have some more to put in here, and we're running out of space. So I'm gonna do the same thing over here. Hope you guys can see. Taking my kraut pounder, and I am, oh yeah, it's gonna work out just fine. I'm gonna smash, and I hope you guys can see. I'm smashing down this kraut, and I'm creating that brine by pressing that kraut down as tightly as I can. There we go. Just like so. Pressing it down. And I'm trying to use my kraut pounder to get any of that kraut off of the edge of the glass. You do not want sauerkraut on the edge of your glass. You don't want anything on the edge of your glass. And I will wipe the remnants up as soon as I'm finished adding everything to the jar. So I'm continuing to put the rest of this in here like so. Just like so. This worked out perfectly, you guys. Look at that. Perfect. All right, so that is my sauerkraut. Now, I'm going to take my kraut pounder and I'm going to push it and submerge all of this down up under the brine. And you want to make sure that you're pushing that up under the brine. And I didn't put any additional water in here, you all. This is brine. This is that water from the cabbage. That's all that's in here. That's it. Okay, now, what I'm going to do now is there's a little bit of brine left in the bowl. Let me move this over. Don't want to drop anything. Now you see there's a little bit of brine, a little bit of cabbage, a little bit of carrot left in the bowl. And so now I'm going to take it and I'm going to pour the remainder, hopefully in this container and not all over the cabinet. Because you never know with me. Accidents happen. And I'm just pouring the rest of that into the glass jar. Now I got a few little pieces on the cabinet. We're just going to get that up. And we're going to put this bowl in the sink. Alright. Rinse that hand off. Now, we're going to do this. This was that paper towel that I said I wasted earlier, that I was being wasteful. It's not going to waste, you guys. I'm trying to uncurl it because I had several pieces of it. Here we go. Just like that. I place it on my cutting board. Place my jar right there so it doesn't move. And then I commence to pushing my kraut again for a final time. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm getting everything in here submerged below the brine to the best of my ability. Everything is tight. You want it to be tight and below the brine. All right, so now that we have that, now we do have some floaties, right? You see those floaties? Here is where we get that leaf. Remember earlier today, we took the leaves off of that cabbage? Well, I had them sitting over off to the side, and I've already rinsed them off. I had them in a little container of white vinegar and salt, and I rinsed them off really well. And so now I'm just going to take these leaves, just a couple of them, and I'm going to rinse them off. Hang on one second, I'm rinsing them off. You all don't need to see me rinse cabbage leaves. That you know what that looks like, right? If you've ever rinsed off lettuce, same deal. And I know I said lettuce earlier, and I meant to say cabbage, but I meant to say lettuce just then. All right, so I'm just shaking the excess water off of these cabbage leaves. Now, I have 3 cabbage leaves in my hand. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take these cabbage leaves, and I'm just going to bend them over, like that. And I'm going to set them inside of this jar, on top of that floating cabbage, just like so. Take another leaf, and I'm not folding them up any particular kind of way. I'm just folding them, and I'm setting them on top of that floating cabbage, just like so. Now make sure your hands are clean, everybody. All right, now I'm going to take that 3rd leaf, and I'm just folding it down like that, and I'm placing that leaf inside of the jar like so, just like that. Now here, you see how you have all that brine? Look at all that brine. Look at that. You still have a couple of floaties. That's going to happen. You're not going to get rid of all of the floaties. So the next step is if you do not have a weight, and a lot of people don't have a weight because a lot of people do not make sauerkraut, then what you can use is a regular old sandwich bag, and it doesn't have to be this brand, but a regular old sandwich bag. Fill that sandwich bag full of water, not all the way full, but enough to make a weight to cover what we're getting ready to do right now. So let me wash my hands because I just touched that box. And I got to put my hands back inside of that sauerkraut. I know y'all like, man, she washed her hands a lot. You got to. When you got your hands in your food like you see me have, you got to wash your hands. All right, now I have a weight. It's just a glass weight. I've already cleaned it. It went through the dishwasher. It should be just fine. And I just rinsed it off before I laid it right there on a paper towel to dry a little bit. It's a glass weight with a little bitty grasper piece in the center so you can grab it out when it's time to take it out. Now you place your weight inside of your jar like so. And I'm just going to make sure that I have that cabbage down. And then what I do is I take my kraut pounder and I try to push it down as much as possible. And as you can see, that brine is almost completely at the top lip of this jar. Just like that. And what I'm trying to do when I push it is I'm trying to make sure that everything up under that cabbage leaf is submerged. That there is no cabbage above the brine. So that's why I'm pushing it the way I am. And I need to move it and center it just like so. There we go. And I'm just going to push it one more time. Make sure I have everything up under that brine. And everything is up under the brine. Okay? Everything. Now, here is what we need to do. And if you have any floaties, then you can pick them off if you like. There are a couple of cabbage floaties. So I'm just going to take those off like that. That way, again, everything is up under the brine. Now, I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm just going to wipe the ring like this just to make sure that I've gotten everything off, that it doesn't have any cabbage on it. Now, I'm going to take this paper towel and I'm going to lay it on top for just a quick second because you know what I forgot? The next step. I hope you guys could hear me well in that last segment. My microphone was doing something weird again, you guys. So take the paper towel off and you get a coffee filter. Place it over the top. Get some rubber bands. And then you secure that to the top like so. You want to make sure that no insects can get in there. No dust can get in there. And I only have one. And I think I want to put two. Let me grab one more, you guys. I thought I grabbed 2 coffee filters. And then I realized when I put it on that it was only one. So I'm just going to take this. Stuff happens, you guys. This is not a perfect kitchen. All right. So 2 coffee filters just to be safe. I don't have any net bugs in the house. But you just never know what's coming and going when you open up the back door, you know. All right, so this, my friends, my YouTube family, and if you're not a part of my YouTube family, that's okay. You can have the recipe too. This is what your sauerkraut will look like. Now, sauerkraut is not a quick, easy, do it all in one day process. This now has to go into a nice area, no hotter than 75 degrees, no lower than 65, I guess. And this is going to sit for roughly 2 to 3 weeks. Now, you need to check on this every single day to make sure that everything is below the brine and there is no mold or anything growing, because this is going to sit out either in your kitchen. I have an area that I call my fermentation station that's in my living room. I put this inside of a styrofoam cooler. because this is going to bubble up. But that's the fermenting process. You're going to see bubbles. You might see some white foam on the top. That's the fermentation process. That's okay. So this you check every day. And if your filter gets wet, then just replace it and put another one on. But check this every day. So let me show you where I put this in the living room. All right, keeping with the theme of showing you different ways of doing this. I keep my fermentation in a styrofoam cooler. I think this thing is maybe $5, $8, $10 at Walmart. If you do not have a cooler, you can use a reusable shopping bag. This is a reusable shopping bag. I have it doubled up to make it dark. Just a plain old reusable shopping bag. You can use a paper bag, but you want to keep it in an area where it's not getting a lot of light and it's not overly hot. And so I keep it in this, and I just so happen to keep it in my living room area out of the kitchen because this is I have more space on the dining room table. So all I do is now I open up the cooler. I take my fermentation sauerkraut and I place it gently inside of the cooler, trying not to disrupt it in any way, trying not to shake it up and bring that sauerkraut above the brine, and it looks like everything is still the way it should be. Everything is below the brine. I keep just a piece of scratch paper on top of my sauerkraut top. I place the top sideways like this. I write the day's date on it that I started my sauerkraut, and I place that scratch paper on top of my lid, and then I leave it. Now I'm not going to leave it right here. This is where I'm showing you so it's easier for you to see. I normally put it out of the way, and every day I check on it to make sure that it is fermenting the way it's supposed to and nothing is growing on top of it. So that, everybody, is how I make my sauerkraut. Now let me move this over out of the way before I talk to you guys about this and end my video. All right, everybody, I know I said in the video, but that is not the end to making sauerkraut. Sauerkraut takes a good 2 to 3 weeks before it is completely fermented and ready to go into the refrigerator and to be eaten. Now I wanted to add this before I put that last clip in the video showing you the end result. Sauerkraut is not just for hot dogs and sausages. In Germany, where I was, it was put on salad. It can be put on your plate like a side dish. Like if you were going to put a side of corn, green beans, whatever your side dish is, you would also have a side dish of sauerkraut. I made pinto beans probably about 3 weeks ago or so, and I took 2-3 tablespoons of sauerkraut and put that on top of my pinto beans and ate it, and I also added some of that sriracha, that homemade sriracha. And if you haven't seen that video, go take a look at that video. But I put that sauerkraut on top of those beans, and those beans ended up being so good. So sauerkraut is not just for a sausage or a hot dog. You can add sauerkraut to any of your dishes just to see whether or not you like it. Put it as a side dish like I mentioned. So I will see you guys back in a couple of weeks when the sauerkraut is ready and I'm ready for it to be revealed and taste tested. So until then, I'll see you guys in a little bit.